You finally get your friends together and you want to play D&D, you want to jump right into it. But you should hold on a second and go through what's called a Session Zero. It's going to save you a lot of headache later on in the campaign. What's up guys, my name is Chris and today we're talking about Session Zeros and how they function with campaigns and specifically how they can save your campaigns from going down a road that nobody wants. Now what is a Session Zero? Specifically, a Session Zero is a session before you actually start playing D&D. Session Zero is the time where everybody gets to figure out what the game is going to be about. It can be things like cleaning up what everybody's going to play as, the races, the classes, what's going on in the campaign. Is it going to be serious? Is it going to be lighthearted? Is there going to be any questionable material? Is there going to be any hard lines nobody wants to cross? Some people want things to stay PG-13 with little blood, little gore, little sex, and some people want things to go rated R or even NC-17. And you guys can do what you want to do in your games, but everybody in the group needs to be okay with it. But the idea behind a Session Zero is you're figuring this out now versus later on. Now you guys can get this figured out, figure out what's going to be off limits and what you really want to focus on in the game before you actually get into the game itself and you have to deal with a whole bunch of other stuff on top of it. And it also helps you if you're a DM because this lets you nail down what your party wants to be focusing on. If they want to focus on exploration, exploring cities, meeting new people, you can tailor your campaign that way. If they want to focus on dungeon crawling, monster killing, and just fun, just Skyrim beat 'em up, they can do that too. But then you also have the idea that this is what they want, so you can tailor your campaign to be more suited towards that specific goal. There's always going to be a mix and match between them all, but a Session Zero is the idea that you get to figure that out beforehand before you get into it. And we're going to be going over what I think makes a strong Session Zero, and there's three main things I think contribute to that. First off, I think it's understanding everybody's boundaries. I said that in the last section, but really, it's talking with your players, talking with your DM, and making sure that you know where things are. Some people don't know where their boundaries are yet, and that's completely okay. But whenever something does come up that makes you uncomfortable or that you genuinely don't like, you need to talk to your DM about that. You need to talk to your fellow players about that. Take a break, take a quick minute, discuss, talk about it. Let them know that, hey, if we can, let's not do this again. I know a lot of games that don't allow torture for that specific reason because some players do like getting into the nitty-gritty of torture and going through specific methods. I don't like that. I don't allow torture in my games in depth. So making sure that everybody's comfortable with that and talking with that, being open and honest with what you think is going to be good in your game and what you are not comfortable with overall. Because though the DM is supposed to be the person who puts everything together, it's just as much on you players to understand that you need to speak up whenever something makes you uncomfortable and you need to let us know. Number two is actually really fun. It's character creation. I like saving character creation for Session Zeros so that everybody can work together and make the parties how they want to. If you want to have everybody making similar characters or having a certain theme with your group, this is the time to figure it out. Sure, you can bring out character ideas that you had and bring them to the table, and you guys can figure out as a group how things are going to work out together. If somebody wants to be a rogue, but you already have two rogues doing the same subclass, they can discuss and figure out what's going to be different between the two of them, or if they want to be something like siblings, partners, part of the same thieves guild, part of rival thieves guilds. This is the moment where you get to really flesh that out between your players and with you as a DM listening in, getting to figure out what you want to use in your campaign. It's a really nice time where you can just sit there, let them play amongst themselves and figure out who their characters are without having to do a whole bunch of in-depth backstory role play in the middle of a session that you're trying to progress the story. Because this is just Session Zero. It's everything just chilling out around the table, figure out what everybody's going to be, how everybody's going to play. In this most recent campaign that I'm in, we had a Session Zero and we trying to figure out what everybody wanted to play. We had two people who were playing intelligence-based roguelike characters. One's actually a rogue and one's an artificer. We were able to figure out how their players are going to interact and how their characters are going to interact within the world without having to bring that into the game per se and try to figure out logistics of, wait, you're lockpicking? No, I'm the lockpicker. We can't both be doing the same lockpick, but they have their own niches that they want to figure out, and they figured that out between Session Zero and Session 1, and even most of it was in Session Zero, so that there wasn't an argument about that when they find their first chest in Session 5 or 6 or whatever. Because these things don't come up for a while a lot of the times. But when they do, it ensures that one person is always going to be one of the best people at this thing. And sure, you can share roles all you want. But by having the Session Zero where people can collaborate with their characters and figure out how everybody interacts together, you get a more unified sense of a party and you get people understanding what everybody's roles are. And I personally feel like it provides a much more close-knit type party who actually care about each other and have lore and ties between each other versus just strangers meeting in a tavern thrown in the middle of it. It's not a bad intro, but it definitely makes things a little bit more difficult to try to figure out how to segue everybody together. And number three is bringing out your house rules in Session Zero and explaining them to your party so that nobody's confused in session. Now, I have one big house rule that I let the players choose between. Either A, your healing potions can do max healing, but you have to use a full action for it, or they still have to roll for healing, but they use a bonus action for it. I didn't come up with this, I think it was a friend of mine did, or he found it from somewhere, and I give my parties the option for it at the start of every campaign during Session Zero or in the first session. It lets the party really feel like they have a choice within the rule set. And there's a couple other things I'll go into, like how we run critical hits, how we run natural successes and stuff like that. Letting the party know from the get-go, here's how things are gonna be running rule-wise, so there's no confusion in the middle of anything. And I find it's a lot easier to let players know about this stuff in Session 0 versus in the middle of combat, where you may or may not be concerned about how a critical hit rolls, and you're questioning which of the 3 different ways you know how to do it's going to function this time. But if you let them know in the beginning of Session 0, then they know that's how it's going to be functioning from that point on. And if anybody has questions, they're able to answer them right then and there and ask them before, you actually need to use them. By and large, I feel like Session Zeros are one of the most needed things within the tabletop game space because it lets players know what they're getting into, how they're going to be functioning, and how the game's really going to be rolling across the entire spectrum. And yeah, those are my 3 main tips for putting a successful Session Zero together. I personally feel like Session Zeros are a necessary aspect of tabletop games because it lets players know what they're getting into, lets DMs know what they're getting into, and lets everybody figure out any problems that they're going to be at the very start so you can work them out and figure out how to resolve them at that moment versus when they show up in the middle of the game. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, click the little subscribe button down below, click the little bell icon to get notified from all my video uploads. If you're interested, I got my merch store, my Patreon in the bio if you want to help support me, a lowly small YouTuber. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I love you all. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.